Welcome to our How to Write a Book workshop. I'm April O'Leary, and this is our digital replay. I'm so glad that you signed up for our class. And in order to serve you, we have decided to provide this so that if you could not attend in person, or if you did attend in person, but you'd like to rehear the stuff that you heard in person, we can provide you with that chance to play, rewind, and play again. So let's get started. You will be given a digital copy of Manuscript Magic, which is written by Heather Davis DeRocher, our head editor. It's 7 simple steps to writing a book, and this workshop is going to take you through those 7 steps. You'll also get a downloadable workshop worksheet so that you can fill out the answers to some of these things, so that by the end of this workshop, you will have a map in place so that you can write your book, or you will have a better, clear vision of who your reader is, where your market is, and how to publish a book that meets and exceeds your expectations. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see the worksheet that you will have the opportunity to print and fill out on your own. So during this How to Write a Book workshop, I'm going to read this first thing here. Writing a book is a lifelong dream for many. For some, it's a way to change careers, open new doors, or create a more visibility inside of their profession. Often it's born out of a challenging life event that defines a new chapter with new lessons meant to be shared to the masses. So what about you? Why do you want to write a book? So push pause on the video right now and fill this out. Why do you want to write a book? Okay, now that you've written down why you want to write a book, it's important to keep that vision in mind, because the change that you hope to impact others or yourself, or both hopefully, will keep you motivated throughout this process of writing your book. So secondly, it's important to define what would be a win for you. So a lot of times when authors come to us, they're creatives, they want to write a book, they enjoy writing, and sometimes it's for a purpose. They want to sell X amount of copies, they want to make that shift in their career, they want to start a political campaign, they want to share their message of healing and hope with many who are struggling with some things that they have overcome. And so the win doesn't have to look the same for everyone, and certainly it doesn't look the same, but it's important to define what would be a win for you, because it's not always going to be number of copies sold. Writing a book can be an income generating tool to bring people to you, your business, other services you offer. It can give you opportunities to speak professionally. It can leave a legacy to share with your friends and family about your interesting life adventures. So write down right now, what would be a win for you if the book was in your hands today? So forget about how you're going to write it, how you're going to publish it, and all that. Just pretend this was in your hands right now. What are you doing with it? How is it that you would know it was a success? So pause the video now and write that down. Okay, now the last question here is really important, because most of the times what is overwhelming with writing a book is that the author has no real plan in mind. They open up a blank Google Doc, or they open up a yellow legal pad and it's blank and they don't know where they're going. There's nothing mapped out. The ideas are all jumbled in their head, and you can imagine that not much happens. So just like building a house, we wouldn't go to Home Depot and start buying 2x4s and some cement mix. We would talk to an architect. We would think about, how many rooms do we need? What are the things that are important to us? Do we really love to cook and we want a really robust, well thought out kitchen? Or do we mostly eat out and we don't need to spend that much, but we do a lot of entertaining, so we want a grand living space? So books are just the same. You got to start with a plan. So have you considered mapping out your book? Have you written any notes down? Do you have an outline? Do you have a working manuscript? Maybe some things you've already typed and got started? And when do you ideally want to have the project done by? So these are all important things to consider to give yourself the best chance at finishing a book. So go ahead and pause the video and write these answers down now. and what makes the most sense for you about when you want to have the project done by, and have you started writing or have you considered mapping your book yet? Go ahead and pause the video and answer that question. All right, welcome back. So now flip to the next page and we're going to talk about the book mapping plan. So many times when we get potential authors who would like to work with us but don't have a manuscript done yet, they'll book what's called a book mapping session with us. That's 2 hours with Heather and I. We listen to your ideas. We'll help you create the table of contents. We'll help you come up with sample titles and subtitles. We'll write that back cover copy for you. We'll do a marketing analysis of where your book would fit. And you'll come away with a timeline, a structure, and a full map of how to get your book done. So it's like meeting with a book architect. That's what we should call it, book architecture. So that's something that we can do for you if you need help with this process. But we're going to take you through these 7 simple steps that Heather put in her book. Now, these are covered in detail in her book. And again, you can read that digital version of it that you will get from being a part of this workshop. If you'd like a hard copy version, hit reply to the email and I'd be happy to stick one in the mail to you. So number 1, define the message. So what is the takeaway that your reader is going to get by reading your book? What's the problem you're solving? So the problem this book solves is helping someone who wants to write a book understand how to do it in 7 simple steps. If you want to know how to cook a chocolate chip cookies, you're not going to read this book. If you want to know how to plant a garden, you're not going to read this book. If you want to know how to travel around the world, guess what you're not going to read? This book. So your book is going to have a core message too. And the reason it's important to have a core message is that you can more easily identify and attract your readers. A book is not meant to be for all people. It's certainly not meant to reach all people at all times. It could be something that reaches people at a certain point in their life. So it could be a book like, for example, What to Expect When You're Expecting. That book is a book that almost everyone who's pregnant gets the first time they're pregnant. But I have no need for that book anymore. And if you're a man, you might never have a need for that book. But at one point in my life, that book was very important to me. So define the message of your book. Go ahead and push pause and define the message of your book. Okay, now that you've defined the message of your book, I hope it's clear, I hope it's concise, and you can see what that bullseye is that your reader is going to get by reading your book. Number 2 is identify the obstacles. What are the obstacles that are going to get in your way that are going to prevent you from writing this book? It could be time. That's usually a huge obstacle that people face. They're already working a full-time job, or they have young children living at home, or any number of things. So time can be an obstacle, but the good news is most of us control our time. Most of us don't have someone telling us exactly what we have to do every minute of the day. So when I wrote my 5th book called The Ultimate Love Affair, it wasn't really a plan to write a book. I had just made a commitment to write every day for 40 days. And I thought, well, how am I going to do that? I've got a really busy, full life. I run a business and I had 3 kids at home at the time. And I decided to get up at 5 a.m. So every day I wrote from 5 to 6:30. And I did that for 40 days. And by the end of that, I had what then became The Ultimate Love Affair book. So obstacles can also be thoughts like, I'm not a good writer. I don't know what I'm going to write. I don't know how to type. I'm not really sure if anyone's going to want to read what I write. Sometimes the obstacles can be mental. So they can be thoughts that we have about ourselves and our ability to write. Sometimes it can be about our fear of others and what they're going to think of us. It could be getting so far ahead that we think, well, I don't know how I'd market it or what I'm going to do with the book when it's done. But if we take things one day at a time, let's stay in right now. If we were to write a book, what are some of the obstacles that might try to come up and prevent us from doing it? So go ahead and push pause and think about that and write it down. All right, welcome back. Step 3, clarify the vision. So this is really very similar to the question on the first page. The vision is, what does this book do for me? So you can even close your eyes and think about it. If you had taken the time to write this book, start with just the writing process. What would you hope to gain by even writing the book? A lot of times our authors find the writing process is therapeutic, it's healing, it's transformational, it's inspiring, it's exciting. You bring out things that you maybe didn't remember. You learn things about yourself. You enjoy the process of working with an editor. So there's a lot of joy in the creation of a project. That can be part of the vision, is allowing yourself the time and space to process and to come to conclusions and sharing things that you've been through that were hard with others. So that can be part of the vision. The vision can also be, I would like this book to help me define and begin a new chapter in my life. So maybe you worked in a corporate career for many years and now you're shifting and you want to be a consultant. You want to speak, you want to present at companies. Having a book can be a great way to engage new leads and create new business. Now, clarifying the vision can also be about impacting an industry, impacting your family, impacting your friends. It can be any number of things. The sky's the limit. So go ahead and pause the video and decide, what would a book do for you? And think about yourself first. What are those things that it would do? Not just it's going to change the world, because you're the one that's going to have to spend the time. You're the one that's going to have to spend the money. You're the one that's going to have to learn how to market and do all of the things that are part and parcel with becoming an author. So it has to be something that appeals to you. Go ahead and push pause and clarify your vision. All right, welcome back. Now, step 4, imagine the reader. So now that we've thought about how the vision is going to help us, now we think about, what is it going to do for the reader? Who is the reader? What's their age? What's their gender, if gender is part of it? What's their state in life? What is their possible background? What's the problem they're facing? Why would they want to listen to you? So really think about that very, very specific demographic, prototype, archetype, however you want to call it, person in front of you. Who are you writing to? What kind of person? Describe them in detail. And step number 4, go ahead and push pause and do that right now. All right, welcome back. Now you're going to step 5, build the frame. So finally, in this architecture process, we get to decide how we're going to build the frame. Now the frame is the table of contents, and the table of contents can be anything you want it to be. It's a creative part of designing your book. And we have done many different types of table of contents. So I'm going to just look in here and tell you a few that we've done that I think will be helpful for you. Now, some of the books we have broken down into categories, like, for example, Finally Free by Valentina Dimitri was about different seasons of your life. And so her table of contents had 4 different seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. And under each season, she had chapters, and each chapter related to that season. So for example, winter was the soil of our present reality. And her chapters were our comfort zone, the formation of our beliefs, and stories that hold us hostage. So you can see how that works out. Spring was what seeds were planted. Fear and desire is chapter 4, living in the feelings of our thinking and our emotional elevator. So you can see that is one way to build the frame. Now, Cornell Bunting, who wrote Escaping the Darkness, had a part 1 and a part 2. So part 1, he talks about adversity and purpose, and he has all kinds of stories about adversity he faced and purpose and how it was created through adversity. And then part 2 was the lessons. So he talks about the lessons that adversity brought to him. So adversity illuminates priorities, adversity teaches perseverance, and so on and so forth. You can do a chronological telling of your story. So for some that do memoirs, that makes the most sense. And you just start at the beginning and go all the way through the end. You might not want to start at birth, but at some significant point in your life and take a chunk of it and tell that story and bring the readers from start to finish that way. So you're going to just think about what is it that you want to do that makes sense for your particular book. Is it lessons? Is it seasons? Is it chronology? Is it trilogy, putting things into a group of 3 sequences? Is it just a regular structure of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3? And that's fine too. So go ahead and pause and think about the outline of your book or the concepts that you have in mind and what might make sense for you. Go ahead and push pause. Welcome back. Now, step 6 is creating the invitation. So creating the invitation is really the thing that's going to get you focused when you're writing on hitting that bullseye, hitting that bullseye, hitting that bullseye. So you have the frame and all of the ideas that are swirling around and trying to understand how is this all going to apply towards the message that I defined in step 1. And then in step 6, that invitation is what's on the back cover of your book. So try to write that in advance. If you had already written your book and you were taking it off the shelf, what is that promise, that golden message that's going to give that reader an understanding of what's inside the book? So the invitation to the reader. So in the back of Manuscript Magic, it says, have you ever wanted to write a book only to sit down in front of a blank page or a new Google Doc confused? Where do I start? What's the right format? How do I know what to write? What if no one cares what I have to share? Most writers are plagued with self-doubt and lack a plan to create a manuscript. This booklet will guide you through our step-by-step book mapping journey so that your message or story flows out magically into a book you can be proud to share with the world. So you can see that those 2 paragraphs define the message by inviting the reader in, inviting them in with questions, showing them what we understand the problems they're facing, and giving the book as a solution. So this is something you might not be able to fit right there in that step 6 window of space, but think about that, flip the page over and write that out on the back and keep that in mind as you're writing. And then finally, step 7 is to find the team. And the team are the people that are going to help you bring this book to life. Nobody births a book alone. It's sort of like that saying that we all raise our children in a village, right? It takes a village. And that's what it can be like for writing a book as well. If you decide to do everything yourself, you're going to find yourself very frustrated. So here's let's go skip ahead here to the book team. So these are all the different types of people that can be involved with a book project. The author, of course, you, the publisher. Now, if you're an author and you plan to self-publish, you'd be called an author-publisher, or you can work with a publishing company. Depending on your notoriety or not, you would decide what types of companies might fit best with you. I encourage you to download our book, The Influencer's Path to Successful Publishing, and join our workshop, How to Publish a Book, where we cover all the various types of publishing available today. You might want a ghostwriter if you don't have the time, but you do have the money. Ghostwriting is a very viable option for many who want to get their book written, but don't have the time or interest to write it. The project manager is someone who's going to handle all the details of the project. A developmental editor is going to help you take those ideas and put them into the right place. So if you can't really build that frame like we talked about, they're going to help you build the frame. The line editor, once all of the content is out onto paper or into a document, is going to go through and smooth out the text. It's going to make it sound a lot better. The proofreader is that last cleanup, someone who comes through and makes sure that every period, every capital, every em dash, every semicolon is perfect or as nearly perfect as possible. The illustrator can draw any illustrations you might have in mind for your book or a cover design. You're going to have a designer, a book designer, cover designer, and an interior designer. Sometimes that can be two different people. Sometimes it's the same person. An ebook designer is someone who's going to take that source file from the book designer and create an ebook. Do not create the ebook yourself, I beg of you, or do the cover or book design yourself. Please hire those out. The launch manager is someone who's going to help you structure your book launch so that you get the most bang for your buck as you launch it into the public space. You might have a publicity manager, somebody who is willing to book podcasts for you and media tours and things like that. And then a social media manager, of course, when you are out there promoting your book, it's very important to stay current on your social media channels. And if you don't have any, those can be set up for you, as well as possibly a website designer. We do that too. We can skip back here to the parts of a book. I included this as well so you understand the flow of how a book will have each component in its right place. So use this as part of mapping your book out so that you know exactly where things go. So this is a very simple workshop. I understand that you are going to have, once you fill out this worksheet, and hopefully you filled out most of it already, a map in place so that you can think about, am I ready to write my book? Did I set a deadline on that first page? Do I have a time in mind when I want to have this book written by? And plan, once your book is written, for another 3 to 6 months to get your book out if you work with a hybrid publisher like O'Leary Publishing. And if you're with a traditional publisher and you've worked with a literary agent to get that traditional deal, you know that to get your book out to market is usually 2 to 3 years. So time can be a factor in deciding your publishing options as well. So reach out to us if you want to schedule that book mapping with me and Heather Davis DeRocher. You can do that by emailing me, april@o'learypublishing.com. It's a $2,000 fee to get an entire book mapping session, and you'll get a report back with your entire book mapped out. You'll have your sample titles, subtitles, table of contents, timeline, marketing plan, genre comparison, and such. So you'll be able to see what your book will look like in a finished format. So I encourage you to do that. Don't start writing with a blank page and a confused head full of jumbled ideas. Start with a plan in place, and I promise you, building and writing a book is much easier than you probably ever thought possible. Thank you for being a part of this workshop, and be sure to download the book Manuscript Magic so that you can read it and to use it along with the worksheet that we just went through. Have a great day, and I look forward to working with you.